Hey, KU fans, welcome back to the KU Sports Hour here at KUsports.com with Shane Jackson and Benton Smith. I'm Matt Tate. And guys, Benton, you have a daughter.
I do.
Shane, you don't.
No, I do not.
You don't have a daughter. You
doesn't
don't
even have a
son?
daughter.
Yeah,
I have a dog who is
Are
a
you
girl
comparing
dog.
my daughter
So
to
wow,
a
this
dog?
got intense.
I'm
in a
just
hurry.
saying.
I'm about to come across this table.
So basically, I know what it feels like to be you guys.
Sure. Well, all I was asking is, I didn't mean to stir things up here. That's a little bit too much. But all I was asking was if you had an opportunity to play your daughter or your dog at, say, like an important position in a sporting event, maybe like starting pitcher or like a goalkeeper or like point guard or I don't know, maybe quarterback even.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Would you guys do it?
I think with my daughter, it'd probably be more like I was like the director of a play, and I was going to cast her as like the lead princess.
Elsa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You would do that? You would.
Probably, just because I don't know anything about the characters. And I know that she likes Elsa.
She's also 4.
Yeah,
5?
She's 4.
Okay.
Nope, she turned 5.
Yeah, I nailed it.
Yeah, you did.
Big
remembered her
October.
birthday.
Big October for Aviva. But yeah, so there you go. You put her in the starring role, right? Why not? Throw her out there. See what she can do. Maybe she can spark your play a little bit.
Maybe.
Shane, would you put your dog in there? Dog's name. Go for it.
Lily. And
Lily.
I think everybody would want to see a dog play quarterback. So,
Oh, yeah.
yes,
There were a
absolutely.
series of movies about that
Yeah.
in the 90s or
Maybe you've heard
something.
of Air Bud?
Plus, I've been training my dog, to catch and play football, really. So, it's basically, she knows.
Okay. So trick plays is what you were going to
Yeah,
run.
yeah.
Not just, this is not going to just be pro style. There's going to be trick plays, which, you got to take advantage of her skill set, right?
Yeah.
How old's your dog?
A year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lots of energy.
Like last month.
Lots of energy.
Yeah.
Definite spark there, I think. That's definitely there. Okay. That's just interesting. Just something that was on my mind. I just wanted to start that before I forgot. Sometimes
Strong start.
these hour podcasts, they go a little long sometimes, and I didn't want to forget that. But we do have a lot to talk about. KU football rolling along or trudging along or sludging along, as the case may be. What would you say? Which one of those words works best? Ben?
Trudge seems appropriate for the past couple of games,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
not rolling. That was my fault.
Definitely not rolling. Sludge seems like it's. I just feel like if it was colder outside, I might lean towards sludge. But just because it's been
Like a
beautiful,
little
I would go
wintry
with
mix.
trudge. Trudge through this.
Trudging. That's
past
probably not even a
couple of
word,
weeks.
right?
I don't know. We should look it up.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but the game at Oklahoma State, just I think mainly because it was like coming off of a bye and coming off of that loss to K-State where the offense really was unproductive. Just kind of a strange development, I thought. I mean, I don't know. I think we keep like readjusting our expectations for this team just
well
based
put.
on what we see, and I don't know. It's I feel like fans' expectations went up, and rightfully so, with the tight game at Texas, a win over Texas Tech, and then you had to watch in a full house, with K-State in Lawrence, them not really perform. And you think, okay, well, they get another bye week. This could be beneficial. They can get right back on track, but it wasn't anything close to that. So
That's the issue,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not, I even though these guys before that Oklahoma State game were all talking about 3 wins, 3 games left, we got to get 3 wins, and I think we can do it.
Yeah.
That's what they should think. Good for them.
Right.
There's no way they should think anything other than that. But even though they thought they could do it, I don't think there was a very big number of people out there that thought they were right.
right.
But I do think there were enough people out there that thought they could be in the game.
Well, yeah, I
And-
think that became the new expectation. That this team could compete in the Big 12.
Right. Very, very, very right. And as much as the final score of that one is 31-13 and it looks, respectable, it was 31-0 after
Yeah.
3 quarters. I mean, that so I don't know. Maybe when we look back at this season, maybe you'll look back and it won't seem like, wow, 55-7, 63-10. I mean, you won't see a lot of those scores, right? I mean, what's the worst one so far? 38-10 K-State? There must have been
Yeah,
another
pretty
bad
much.
one. Oklahoma wasn't even that bad, was it?
No, because KU scored 20 points in that one. I
Yeah.
It would
think.
have been TCU 51-14.
Yeah.
There you
That
go.
was really
That was the
bad.
one,
Yeah.
right? Okay, and that was what, week 5 or something?
I believe so.
Yeah. So anyway, you're not going to see a lot of those is the point, but don't be fooled, right? I mean, I think that was what was so important about the final 3 games. Whether they could win them all or not was at least from our perspective, totally irrelevant.
Right.
I mean, the only way it would have been relevant is if they did win them all, and then you have to scramble to make bowl plans.
Yeah, then I would have had to cancel my late December plans.
Right. So you're good now, and you're probably good for a while. Those of us who have sat in the beat writer for KU football chair have planned plenty of December events over the last decade, And but anyway, the point is, when you look back, those 3 games were whether they won or not was irrelevant. All that mattered was, what does it look like? Do they finish strong? Do they prove that, hey, there's something here? And then they go and they're down 24-0 at halftime. They're down 31-0 at the end of the third quarter. There's nothing there. I mean, there's quite literally nothing there. And then you're getting into all these issues about the offense taking a massive, velociraptor step backwards. And then you're talking about quarterbacks getting benched and other quarterbacks playing, and
that was bizarre.
It just turns into a whole thing, and everything for me. And I wasn't there. You were down there. You were the only one down there, I think, right? Only newspaper media member, anyway, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
from Kansas City or
right.
I mean, obviously there were some Oklahoma papers.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. But you were down there, and at least that's why we want to talk about it. But from my perspective, it was more of a, man, this is the same old, right? We're juggling quarterbacks. It's a cluster. The offense can't score. They're not in the game. It's not fun to watch. I mean, it just to some degree, as bad as they were against K-State, and as much as that game was, ugly, for lack of a better word, there was still enough there. I mean, it was 17-3 at halftime. They were fighting, right? I really thought that, and I didn't see it, so I'm not going to say they didn't fight at Oklahoma State. You'd know better, but even the K-State game, for my money, was a team that was still trying to grind and find a way to make it happen. And I know they keep trying. These guys are absolutely deserve that. That no one should say they're not giving max effort. They're doing everything they can. But all those external factors that I just mentioned, that really brought it back to, oh my gosh, we're really, truly in the same spot. We've seen this before. And all that talk about the Texas and Texas Tech weeks, all that talk about Dearman, all of it is now being called into question of whether that's relevant or not, right? Because they have 2 games left to prove themselves and to leave sort of a lasting impression. We talked so much about their first impression this year and how important that was. Well, I think the lasting impression is going to be even more important, because that's what you're going to remember. That's the last thing you'll have in your mind as you go into another offseason of wondering, is this getting better? And right now, people don't even want to go there, right? I mean, that Oklahoma State game was so bad in so many ways that people flip the script and are just, it's over. We don't care. I'm done. And so now they got to get it back. And they got 2 chances to do it, 2 tough games. There's nothing that says they will. There's definitely nothing that says they can't, though. It just comes back to, go be competitive, score some points, and give your fan base a reason to care. And really, up until and even through the K-State game, they had done that. And I think last week was such a bad step backwards that now you really have to wonder what's the next 2 weeks hold, and all of a sudden these are massive weeks with huge stakes.
Yeah, the offense definitely was not good in the first half, and Stanley wasn't good in the first half either. But to me, a lot of that had to do with the play of the offensive line. Oklahoma State's pretty aggressive with its front 7, and Stanley was under a lot of pressure, and that kind of hurried him up. Obviously, he thinks he can do better than he showed in that first half, and he's at times this year, handled pressure better than he did. But it was so strange. the third quarter opened, and I think I was like typing, working on my parts of my game story for that day, and I looked up, and like the press box is like at the opposite kind of end of the field from where KU was. They were backed up kind of inside their own 10, and I looked and I was like, what? Who's a quarterback?
Oh.
It was Manny Miles.
Yeah, right.
Like,
so you didn't see him go in or anything?
No, I mean, I wasn't even thinking about a different quarterback.
Nor should you have been.
The broadcast didn't even mention it until third down.
Yeah.
They didn't realize, and they thought it was just for one play. They were like, oh, Manny Miles in for one play, and they hadn't realized that he was in there for the first two plays before that. So you're not alone.
Yeah, and he played the whole quarter, correct?
Yes, the entire quarter, 3 possessions. So, I mean, like, and the reason it was surprising is because, as you referenced, like in the past, this was commonplace. Hey, well, let's change quarterbacks and just see what happens. That happened all the time for years and years and years. But this year, it hadn't happened at all. They stuck with Stanley, stuck with him, and most of the time that ended up being the right decision, right? We've seen him throw an early interception and then have a great game,
right,
a couple of times this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a little bit different here, where you see a whole half of him having some issues, but I mean, that's what halftime's for, right? Regrouping and talking things over with your entire staff and figuring out, okay, how do we fix this? Now let's go fix it. And then they just went away from him for an entire quarter. And I mean, it's not like Manny Miles was out there moving the chains. They went 3 and out. A penalty gave KU a first down, and then he threw an interception.
Right, and I mean, it's not like Manny Miles has played any college snaps at any school before Kansas. So
he was a backup walk-on quarterback in North Carolina who graduated and came here to play for his dad.
Which is absolutely fine. Enjoy the hell out of that.
It's cool.
Yeah. But to put him in that situation is man,
it made no sense.
There's just that's a good way to put it. There's just no other way to put it than that, or just the fact that it's just not fair. That's just not fair to Carter Stanley.
It's not fair to Carter Stanley's teammates either,
right?
Because they weren't put in a position to make that game competitive,
right?
Because the best quarterback was over on the bench.
Yeah, that's a good point. Shane?
Yeah, I was going to say, and it comes back to just earlier that week, you're talking about, hey, this team's still bowl eligible.
Right.
Just get 3 more wins. Les says all the time, they're going to play meaningful games in November, and then when the score is, still 24 points,
that's not
manageable.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, we're going to put in a quarterback who doesn't have experience.
Who's never played. Right.
That it just contradicts everything you've said all year. I think that's the biggest thing for me. And if you're going to make a change at all, and I think Ben's probably mentioned it before, you go for something of a future look. You look at someone who's going to be on this roster next year, not necessarily someone who is done in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way to look at it for sure. And to that point, look, I don't even. Les seems like a terrific family man, a great dad. His family's incredibly close. They're all really nice people. It's a cool thing, right? It is. You can say that the business of college football is all about X's and O's and wins and losses and all that, and that is the most important part of it, no doubt. But for this man to have created a situation pretty harmlessly to where he can have his 2 sons play for him, and his daughters are in town, and the whole family's together, and they're all bought into Kansas, and they all care about KU and being Jayhawks, and they're all supporting and the community and all that stuff. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It really is cool on a very human level. That's really cool. The issue that I have is if that's what you want to do, and he hasn't said this. He's not said. Benton asked him. He's not said, "Hey, I wanted to get my son in the game." That's the reason he said is he wanted to give KU a spark. It didn't happen, and that probably wasn't going to happen. But that is his reason for putting Manny Miles at quarterback. We have to believe, though, that the reason he put him in is because he wanted to get his kid in the game. And that's okay. But my goodness, there's a time to do that, and it would have been 2 weeks later. Senior day against Baylor. At that point, you would know whether or not a bowl game is still attainable. If you lose that game, you're down 24-0, right, to Oklahoma State. You go lose that game, you can't go to a bowl.
Right.
So now, all right, fine. You know what? If you want to give your kid a quarter in the final game of his college career at home on senior day, that might not sit as well either because Carter Stanley's a senior too, but at least that would make a little bit more sense in terms of just it's the final chance to get him out there, and we're going to do it. And it's a day to honor all the seniors, and the chances of going to a bowl, all of our goals are gone. They've been out the window. So to me, that's when it would have been more appropriate. And
or even the fourth quarter of that Oklahoma State
there's
game,
a good point, too.
I mean, you're down
When the
24
game
and it's
is
the first
definitely
drive
over.
of the second half. I mean, it's still manageable. If you score a touchdown, you're within 3
Sure,
scores. So
sure.
I think even the fourth quarter, if you're down 31-0, that's maybe a time to go.
there you go. Yeah, I don't hate that at all. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and Stanley got hurt late in the fourth quarter against K-State, and he came out and Manny Miles went in, and the game was pretty much over.
Right.
But he got some snaps. I mean, those are the situations that he should be playing in.
That's exactly right. And the whole thing is it just makes it unfortunate because here's the deal: if he truly was just trying, if we take him at his word and he was trying to give him a spark, then you have to wonder about his ability as a coach, right? This guy's never played Division I football. He's not. I mean, it's just hard to say that is probably what this offense needs, right? And then if that's not it, and you question his word, and you have to wonder if he's just doing it to get his kids some playing time for the memory, well then you have to wonder about that, and you have to have your opinions about that. So it just creates an unfortunate situation, no matter which way you're looking at it, and more than unfortunate, it was just unnecessary.
Yeah.
It didn't have to happen, and I think it speaks to the bigger issue. Maybe not the bigger issue, but it's a small piece of a big issue here, and that's you have an offensive coordinator named Brent Dearman who's shown to have some success. Now, I'm not going to let him off the hook completely because there are also some defensives that have appear to have maybe figured out a little bit of what he's about, which is why the offenses maybe struggle. But you have an offensive coordinator who you promoted midseason in a pretty public fashion, right? Is that who he wanted at quarterback? Was that his decision? I mean, I just think that your offensive coordinator has to be left alone. You have to allow him to coordinate the offense. That means call the plays. That means dictate the personnel. And I get it. You're the head coach, so it's your show ultimately. But the idea is that you're hiring guys that you trust to do their jobs. And Brent Dearman's job is to call plays, score points, and put KU's offense in the best possible situation. And I don't think that's happening right now. And certainly, Manny Miles for a quarter is a good indication of that. But just transitioning, right? There's many more indications that some of these recent play calls are maybe not from Dearman's playbook necessarily. I mean, some of that stuff that we saw with Les Kenning, the tosses to Puka, my goodness, those should be and were a thing of the past.
Well,
and they're back.
Yeah, they're back. I mean, they ran a couple of those on third and shorts in the first quarter at Oklahoma State, and Carter Stanley was pretty up front. I mean, we asked him about those plays on Monday during his interview session, and I mean, he handled it well because, he obviously knows a lot more than he can say. I mean, he could just be completely blunt with us, but then he'd probably get in trouble,
Yeah.
I mean, but he basically said, okay, I mean, if you think about it, the power formation plays are more kind of traditionally a Les Miles look. And obviously that's completely true,
These are his words?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
him.
Mike Gundy was talking about Les Miles before this game, in the week leading up to it. And someone asked him, does this offense look to you like a Les Miles offense? And he's like, well, no, not really, because Les Miles' offense to me is 2 tight ends and a fullback.
Right.
There you go. A guy who knows Les Miles more and better than just about any other coach in the country.
Sure.
Said this is what a Les Miles offense looks like: 2 tight ends and a fullback.
And then what happens?
And then they ran some
And
plays
then we
like
see
that.
it, yeah.
And then and Shane had a screenshot of probably the worst one, where it was a 3rd and 2 in the first quarter, and they're about to toss it to Puka to the left side,
where everybody is.
Yeah, where literally 7 of the 10 guys in the box are lined up. And we asked Stanley about, his audible ability. In some plays, he cannot audible out of that. He said, it's one of those plays where I bet before the ball was snapped, everyone on the offense wished we could have changed it.
Wow.
I mean, that's that's concerning to hear.
Concerning for sure. And look, you're talking about. I mean, Carter Stanley's a better man than me because if I'm a senior and my career's almost over, and they're calling these plays that I don't like, and no one else in the huddle likes, I'm audibling.
Yeah, I mean, like
you might get benched, but that it's some varsity blues stuff out there. Guys just going rogue and whatever the coach says, don't listen to him. Let's go win this championship. Whatever. But I would have. And easy to say sitting here behind this microphone. I get that maybe I wouldn't have, but I'd like to think I would have. I mean, so you get your face chewed off, right? Well, did you get the first down? Did you score points? I mean, I don't know. That again, good for him for doing, being a solid soldier and following orders and all of that. But man, what a tough spot to put him in.
Yeah, that's the whole thing that's just makes no sense to me because they've backed this guy and not really put him in situations where he has to second guess himself, and then they went away from him for an entire quarter. And what do you know, when they put him back in, I think he played pissed off and he played well. Obviously it's a little bit of a different situation. You're down 31-0 at that point. You're just passing it because you're just trying to get as many points as you can, before the clock runs out. But I mean, why not take that approach in the third quarter with the quarterback that you've been backing all season long?
Yeah, how about you tell them at halftime, if you don't find a way to get something going, we're going to put Manny Miles in.
Yeah.
You think that wouldn't piss him off? Right. That wouldn't get him fired up? I mean, there's your spark, and again, none of us have coached, but it doesn't seem like it's as difficult as they made it in this situation. And that comes back to the whole unfortunate thing. I mean, Shane, you haven't coached, have you?
Oh, Little League football. Obviously.
Have you?
Actually, yeah, I did.
See? Okay. I have not. But that's why I paused. I wanted to catch it. How'd you guys do?
Not good.
Yeah? Did you get called out by parents?
No, we just didn't have a whole lot of athletes, but we learned the number system by the end of the year. That's the important part. Like what hole was each number. So
okay. I thought they were letters.
Well, not the way we did it.
Ooh.
So I'm just saying.
Wow.
Our way is better.
So you have instead of an A gap and a B gap, you had 1 and 2?
Yeah, I think, A gap and B gap is like defense.
Oh, okay.
I think numbers, so you're
talking offense. Yeah, you're an offensive mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And so 21 dive means your two backs going in the one hole.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that makes more sense.
Okay.
So you still were gap sound on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. It's important, man. I mean, you can't win anything without that. So I'm glad to hear you built a foundation, and we'll go back and look at some film of your tragedies. Ben, anything else you want to talk football? I know we have some questions that we'll get to at the end. Should we transition to some hoops and then get back to that with the questions at the end, or what?
I mean, you're steering the ship. What do you think? We could hit
think
the football
so.
questions or save them?
I think so. Let's save them for the end. I always like going out with Frank Saunders and Kyle Coffey and those loyal listeners, and I know there are thousands more, so we appreciate each and every one of you. But yeah, let's talk some hoops. KU's heading to Maui on Saturday. They'll leave Friday. They play next Monday, and they'll play 3 games in 3 days. One of the best events in the history of events. And I don't mean that lightly. I mean, it is such an awesome tournament. Whether you watch it every year, you stay up late to catch the late game, you're rooting against Duke, you're following KU out there, whatever it is, if you've ever been, I mean, any of that, it is just such an awesome tournament. It has big time feel and tournament vibe, and it's packed into this little tiny 2,400 seat gym that just brings energy from all 4 corners and the ceiling and everywhere. I mean, it's just a cool event. So these guys really fortunate to get to go out there and do that. Look, KU goes every 4 years. I mean, they have a rule in place that you can only do that every 4 years. Otherwise, it would be Kansas, Duke, Michigan State. Every year it'd be the same field. So it's nice they mix it up. But KU was there in 2015 and won it. They were there in 2011 and finished runners up. They're back this year. I mean, they've been many times before that too. But the point is, it's 2019, right? Is it?
That's
Still?
correct.
Okay. So they'll be back in Maui. If you guys are trying to make long-term plans, they'll be back in Maui in 2023. It's just automatic.
All right.
So anyway, it's
Are there just certain schools that get that treatment? Because, obviously KU's not facing the same field.
No, but
every year.
the last time they were out there in 2015, UCLA was in the field. They're in this year's field. Georgia was in the field. They're in this year's field. So some of the teams missing. St. John's was there last time. They're not there this year. Chaminade is every other year now as the host school. They used to host and be in it every year, but they switched that to every other year. So they weren't in it last year, and they switched it just to give another team a chance, right? Every couple of years, which is cool. Chaminade's fun, but that thing. I mean, what'd you say? Ken Palm already has KU as 100% guaranteed, right? So that's really all you need to know. So it is. I mean, they've played UCLA in this thing so many times. I mean, they played them last time. They played them the year before or the time before, I believe. I mean, it. But again, that's UCLA, right? So I think you're right. There is some rhyme or reason to it, and it's largely programs that will bring fans.
Yeah,
I mean sense. Kansas is going to bring fans, and a lot of people have gone multiple times, and it should be a good time. But obviously, Tuesday night was a good test for that. I mean, I think if you go into the Maui Invitational, even against Chaminade, coming off of that Monmouth win against a bad basketball team, I don't think your focus is where it needs to be. But I think their game against East Tennessee State, KU wins 75-63, a dogfight. The second half played even with actually East Tennessee pretty much outscoring them most of the way. I mean, that thing was 4 or 5 points a lot of that second half. That they had to grind. They had to earn that victory. And so I think that's a great one to jump into Maui, where you're going to have a couple of really tough games after that Chaminade game. And I just think this team is, there's still a long way to go before they put it all together. But I think this team is really, it seems to be taking the proper steps toward just putting it all together. We talked about it a little bit on KU Sports Extra. It seems like roles are becoming more defined, right? I mean, they still have to figure out the 2 bigs versus 4 guards thing, but I don't even think they really do. I think they're there. I think Self has figured out that, hey, I'm going to start 2 bigs, and I'm going to play McCormick or Silvio, whichever's the hot hand out of those 2 guys, and then I'm going to try to make them both happy as I can with their roles, give them 10, 12, 13 minutes apiece, somewhere in that range, and then I'm going to play 4 guards the rest of the time, and I'm going to have Enaruna out there, and I'm going to have Moss out there, and I'm going to have Garrett out there, and those guys are going to do what they do. And so when you look at it that way, I think it's really simple. I mean, I think 1 through 8, this is probably 9 even. I mean, because Christian Brown is sort of your 9th guy right now. I think it's very clearly become this obvious rotation. And, it doesn't mean this guy's going to be your number 1 option every night or anything like that, but even that might be true. I mean, isn't it Udoka, like every night?
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's almost opponent defense based, right?
Right.
Like, can KU get Udoka the ball in the post where he can just turn and score? If they can,
that's what you do.
That's what you do.
Yeah, good point.
Were you surprised at all that McCormick started? Just after after Silvio started against Monmouth, I just assumed they would stick with that because it didn't seem like it went poorly by any means.
Well, Dave played his best game of his career,
right.
And Silvio showed a little life and energy and bounce. And I mean, I get rewarding a guy, I do, and I'm sure that's what the decision was. But at the same time, what works best is what I would go with. So I was surprised. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, who do you start? What's your starting 5? Even if you don't start 2 bigs, we'll just go around. Shane, who do you start if you're this Kansas team? If you're Bill Self, I know you got some little league football coaching chops, but transition your mind now to basketball coaching if you could. Numbers still matter. There's no gaps in basketball though. So
who runs the 21 dive? That's all I need to know.
I'd probably give the ball to David McCormick.
Dotson running downhill.
Oh, good choice. Stupid. See, that's why you're a coach and I wasn't.
I think probably what it's going to end up being is a 4-guard look, and that's probably what I would go with if I was If I was the coach, that would be my starting lineup. But I do understand why they're still trotting out the 2 bigs.
Who are your 5 then?
Well, a lot of it has to do with Moss getting fully 100%. So Moss is in there, and then it's Ochai, Dotson, and Marcus Garrett.
with Udoka.
Yeah,
Okay.
with Udoka, right.
Okay. Well, because I mean, I think there's a legit like Inaruna, right?
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. Yeah, part of this is because I expect Moss to be 100%,
Right.
and what he brings on offense is worthy, I think, of a starting nod if you're doing that 4-guard look.
Yeah, I like it, Ben.
Yeah, it's definitely. I would agree with Shane that you would wanna
Role
go-
reversal. What happened?
You would want to go with the 4-guard look. I mean, Self he's been pretty upfront. Like that's how they're better right now.
Right.
With that look. I thought it was interesting. Like early on in the game, Udoka and McCormick actually worked together pretty well offensively. It didn't always end in a bucket, but it didn't look like a disaster.
No.
So I thought they were making progress. But
I think all of them are. I think Silvio and Udoka and Dave and Udoka are all figuring out how to play together. And by play together, I mean space, basically, right? Like those two guys, it's up to those two guys, McCormick and DeSosa, to figure out where they need to be, where they should be, so that Udoka can be where he needs to be.
Right.
And I thought that looked better last night. I agree with both of them. And it that'll come with reps, with time, all of that stuff. So anyway, back to your starting five.
But yeah, at this point of the year, obviously it's Udoka inside, and that will be the case as long as he's healthy, and
Sure.
Dotson at point. And even though Ochai has been a little off shooting, it seems like for a couple games now.
Right.
You stick with him.
Yeah,
You
3
stick
for
with Garrett.
17 in his last two games. But whatever. I mean, he played 35 minutes last night.
Yeah. Garrett obviously is going to play. So the tricky part is finding the 4th guard. And I don't think you can really go wrong with Moss or Inaruna.
Right.
I like both of those guys. Inaruna does so much. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the year he is starting. Especially if he keeps improving. Like he's already a very good freshman player as far as just doing a little bit of everything. And he has this massive wingspan, and he made a couple of really good passes, just like intuitive plays.
Did he throw the pass to Udoka in the
The
paint?
last one before the first half was really good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But as Shane mentioned, Moss, I think, is easily this team's best shooter. He just had a rough night against East Tennessee State.
Sure.
After having a game where he just showed out.
Yeah, but man, how about that, Bill Self? Like he knew that, right? He's like, he's not going to get open looks like that, like he did against Monmouth. And guess what? He didn't. He only got 2 shots off, and that's because East Tennessee State defended.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's where it becomes up to his teammates to get him open.
There you go. But I still like the threat of him as a shooter, because that just gives you the space that you want with Udoka being the focal point of your offense.
Yeah.
So, and I think Inaruna can be a good 3-point shooter too, but I do think Moss will be the best 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what you want.
But you would go 4 guards.
Yeah.
And
then I also think there's a benefit of that you can really ask a ton of Udoka, and then, obviously he's a guy who's got winded over the years. Then give him a breather and let McCormick and Silvio play those 5 minutes. I guess the tricky part is getting all 3 of them involved, and that's probably the bigger reason as anything that they're sticking with 2 bigs, because that way it's actually easier to get all of those guys at least some minutes, rather than being like, all right, Udoka plays 20, Silvio plays 10, McCormick plays 10.
Yeah.
So
right, I think that's what it'll come to be. I don't think it'll be that rigid, right? Like you're saying, but I think that's what it'll come to be. And some nights that means Silvio or McCormick will get 13, 14, and the other guy will get 6, 7, whatever it is. But talking to Silvio after the game on Tuesday night, I mean, the simple fact of the matter is he flat out said, "I'm good with it. Of course, I'd rather play more minutes, but I played important minutes, and I impacted the game, and I helped my team win, and that's what I want to do." And you're not going to get that answer from everybody. And so I think whether that, whatever you want to call it, whether that approach works or not is really largely dependent on Silvio and Dave McCormick's demeanor and mindset. Can they be okay getting 12 minutes a game as long as they're quality minutes where they get a chance to actually help? Or are they going to get frustrated? Are they going to, I don't want to use the word pout, but people would, right? No doubt about it. So that to me is the big question, and I think that's why you keep starting them. I think you said it. I think you start one of those guys. For my money, if it were me today, and it's based on what you just said a minute ago, I mean, I start Silvio because I think Dave is wired better to come off the bench. He looked great off the bench against Monmouth, and I know it was Monmouth, but still, he just looked like a guy who had some urgency. Like, okay, here's my chance. I got to go show what I can do, right? And I got to play big, and I'm juiced by that because I want to show that I should be out there. And I think Silvio's more even keel than that. I think Silvio's kind of like, hey, whatever. If you start me, I'll play, and if I come off the bench, I'll play, and just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll try to do it. And so that's not to say Dave doesn't have the same attitude. I think he does, but these guys are both very selfless. There's no ego on this team, and I think this is a team full of team first type of guys. But just in terms of being turned up or not, I think the Silvio McCormick thing is different. And then Benton, your column was right on, man. I mean, you have Inaruna, and you have Moss, and you have the other big. In this case, it'd be McCormick in my scenario, coming off the bench. That is nasty. I mean, that is fire.
Yeah, I mean, like at the first time KU went to its bench, like all three of those guys came in at the same time, and just like them walking on the floor, I was like, man, how many teams would love to have these three guys
starting?
There you go.
All three of them would start at most places.
Yeah, Inaruna, Moss, DeSosa.
Right.
Those three are coming off your bench. All three are impactful. I mean, DeSosa was great down the stretch.
Right.
Inaruna, like we were talking about earlier, just gives you everything.
Sure.
Moss can be like a top level shooter.
Well, how cool is it too that you can come in with those three guys, and you don't automatically know who they're coming in for, right? They could be coming to get Dotson, Udoka, and Ochai, and then Marcus Garrett could play 4 minutes a point.
Yep.
They could be coming to get Ochai, Garrett, and who am I missing? Oh my gosh.
The other big.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There you go. Right. There it is. That's why, because we were talking about them same time. Yeah, no, that's it. But right. I mean, you just don't know who they're coming to get, and what you do know is that automatically they're going to walk in there and hold their own. And some nights it's going to work, some nights it's not. I mean, that's part of the flow. That's part of basketball. Ochai is going to be 3 for 17 over his 2-game span, and then he's going to be 12 for 17 a couple of games later. It's just one of those things. So I think, as much as it seems like a bit of a predicament, like, oh, they're in this tough spot, they don't know what to do, I really don't think that's it. I think they're fine with it. I think the players are fine with it. I think Self's fine with it, and I think that's why he continues to say, I don't know what we're going to do, because he doesn't have to know. There's no reason to figure it out right now. I think it plays itself out. I think in time you will see what works and what doesn't more often. Right now you got a 4-game sample size, right? 2 weeks from now, you'll have a 10-game sample size. So I think that'll make it easier for them to kind of understand what direction they do want to go with everything. And I think that's why I really believe that this rotation is way more figured out than people think, and then it appears for sure. But either way, the most impressive thing to me about this team right now is the way they've gotten off the starts. I think the East Tennessee State start was phenomenal. I mean, it's 9-8, it's back and forth, and the next thing you know, they hit them with an 18-2 run, and it's 27-10. I mean, game over. And it wasn't. East Tennessee State kept coming, and they kept coming, and that's a credit to them. But that was the cushion they needed. And then at that point, you just have to play even, and you win. And that's exactly what they did. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see if those starts travel, if that fast-paced, intense defensive pressure and attacking mindset on the offensive end, if that shows up in Maui 3 days in a row. I think it can, but you've got 3,800 miles to go. You've got new gym. You've got new opponents. You've got 3 games in 3 days. You've got cramping issues. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. So for my money, that's the thing I'm most interested in, way more than the lineup right now, because I think the lineup, I think you could legitimately pull 5 names out of a hat with this team and start them and be fine. What
if you have 3 bigs?
Maybe you need 2 hats. Maybe you need 2 hats. Right. There you go. So, but roll the dice, whatever's names show up, and that's who you play, or at least open the game with. I think it would work, and it'll be really interesting to see. Shane, what are you looking forward to, or at least looking for from this team in Maui? Anything you want to see? I mean, everybody knows, right, that KU Michigan State title game looms. I mean, let's hope that's what it is, because that would be the most exciting game. That would be the most the game you can learn the most from. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to want that matchup, but anything you're looking forward to specifically maybe learning over the next week?
Yeah, I just think the element of the 3 games in 3 days is really fascinating. At any level, those tournaments are fascinating to watch, to see how teams just manage that and minutes and all that stuff. So that to me is the most interesting. How can these players handle quick turnarounds and stuff like that? Because there's going to come a time in the NCAA tournament when there's your second game in the weekend, it comes 2 days after.
Right.
So how does this team flip around? I know
Big 12 tournament, same thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit longer, but to me, that's the most fascinating thing about what this tournament holds. Obviously, the aside is Michigan State and potentially in the championship game. That's really the big one, though.
Yeah, what a huge thing, right, for their schedule. You open the season against Duke at Madison Square Garden. That means that nothing can get bigger than that. I mean, the tournament will, but by then you'll have 40 games under your belt or 30 games under your belt. But for these freshmen, Inaruna, even Moss to some degree, but certainly Christian Brown. I mean, going out to Maui is playing UCLA or BYU in game 2. That's not going to seem overwhelming. I mean, you just played in Madison Square Garden against Duke. You're fine. So, Benton, anything you are particularly eyeing heading into next week?
I think I'm always interested to see if Self's just going to do his typical thing where his best guys are just going to play 36, 37 minutes, even though they're playing 3 days in a row. I guess the good thing for KU and its draw this year is that you definitely do not have to do that since you get day one with Chaminade. You should be able to spend most of the second half playing reserves and kind of save Dotson's legs, save Ochai's legs.
Deep reserves.
Yeah.
I mean, you should E.J. Elliott, Christian, Michael Jankovic, those guys should get some runs.
To me, that kind of gives KU an advantage if they end up taking that route, but I think they should be able to. And I mean, why not as well?
Right.
So.
Yeah. Good call. Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be interesting to see how they get there. Again, 100% guaranteed winner in the Ken Palm rankings. So
he's not wrong then. I mean, I don't know what happens.
I don't think he's ever wrong, right?
If you're wrong on a 100% call, I mean, I think you got to shut down the website.
Yeah, that'd probably be fair. Or at least change the name.
Shane, we can't gamble on this game, can we?
Oh, I don't think so. That's a good question.
Did you hear the disappointment in Shane's voice? He hadn't thought of it. He's heartbroken now.
Well, with college basketball, odds definitely don't come up until 24 hours before. So there's no way to know until
there might be a line.
Okay.
I would doubt it, but maybe.
There might be a line, and I bet it's around 31.
Wow.
It's a big line.
Yeah.
But hey.
There's not a projected score on Ken Palm, and that's usually where Vegas goes to get its numbers.
Yeah, wild, man. Well, it'll be interesting. I'll be out there with all kinds of coverage from all 3 days, including Sunday's surfboard press conference and free throw shootout among the coaches. It's always so exciting. But we will get a chance to talk to Coach Self over there and just find out how the trip went and their travels and obviously what their plans are for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday leading up to Thanksgiving. So I will be there. Benton will be in Ames, Iowa.
You keep
this weekend. You'll be there this weekend. Yeah, I did on KU Sports Extra too. You'll be back from Ames by the time Maui hits.
I will be at home by the time that people are watching these games in Maui.
Have you considered that very popular Des Moines to Maui flight? I mean, have you considered it? Just just throw some cash down on your own and
a flight that
go rogue.
Yeah,
it's got to be direct.
Well, I mean, the issue is, there is another KU football game after the Maui Invitational, and there's football related things I will probably need to be working on during the Maui Invitational.
All right. Well, you said so. I was inviting you to come. But,
okay. All right. Well, I'm coming.
I was going to have you pay for it.
You're now writing all the KU football content on the site.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. But anyway, Shane, where will you be? Orange, Kansas?
Well, this weekend I'm going to Oklahoma City.
Oh, that's right. Tell the people why.
To watch LeBron James play a basketball game on Friday night. It's going to be so exciting. Rare Friday night that I'm off.
Yeah,
because
it's exciting.
High school sports, they're always on Friday nights in case people didn't know.
Yeah, and you've had a few KU basketball games lately too. You've earned it, man. LeBron against OKC, LeBron against Chris Paul.
People are talking about it.
Wonder if they'll suit up together just to show the NBA who's boss.
The Banana Boat Bowl.
Steven Adams. I don't know who else is on the Thunder these days. They're a shell of them former selves. Yeah.
Your boy Gallinari.
Yeah, he is. That's right. What a shame. What a shame. But yeah, it'll be fun. So enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
It's not
I will.
Ames.
No, it's not.
It's not Maui. It's kind of right in between.
That's true.
So-
Better than names, really. So
Yeah, you'll be basically you
A lot of Ames slander on this podcast.
I like Ames. I'm not a hater. I just think there's been snow on the ground every single time I've ever gone there. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. September snow.
it was really nice last year. I think
For what?
for the basketball game. You're lying. 'cause
Oh yeah, you
I
came
was
up
there,
there.
yeah.
We had some,
It was beautiful.
We had Subway. I remember that. Oh man, you're right. It was a nice day. Okay, well, old habits
Stand
die hard.
corrected.
I am bitter and old and all of those things. But we got about 15 minutes left. Let's take some questions. Ben asked for football questions.
I did.
I think we're going to just ride with football questions until the end of football season. And then after that, we'll switch over to your basketball questions. It seems that most people have basketball answers, not basketball questions. And so we'll push those off to a little bit longer. In December, we'll start heating up the basketball Twitter questions, and we won't have as many football questions to talk about at that
That's
point.
true.
So we'll need them. So sit tight, keep them in your memory bank, and write those down if you have to, and bring them in December. We'll ask for them then. Right now, football questions. Lots of those.
Yeah, I think we had like 11 or 12, if I remember correctly.
1,000, you said?
Yeah,
Wow.
we had 10,000 questions.
That is
so
a
I don't
lot.
think we're going to get to them all. I thought we would open with I was impressed to see that Prison Mitch had a question. So
Okay.
we can
football
address
question?
that. Yeah,
Wow.
that's right.
Blew Shane's mind.
I know.
I'm shocked.
Multifaceted Prison Mitch Twitter account. Okay. There are no L's in Brent Dearman's name, but 2 in Les Miles' name. Is this a coincidence or a premonition? So that kind of hits on what we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
With the offense and kind of Les Miles maybe not totally giving Brent Dearman total reins and, ultimately letting him do what he wants to do. Les Miles is still kind of, it seems, saying, all right, we know you have these RPO and spread plays, but I also like these type of power formation plays, and I'm telling you that we should be running them. That's what it seems like is happening. Like, I don't think, like, Les Miles isn't calling plays during a game, but I think he's telling Brent
There's a
Dearman
game plan.
in meetings,
Right.
like, all right, this is part of the game plan. This is the type of plays I want to see in these type of situations.
You don't think he's calling them during?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I think Brent Dearman is calling the plays, and at times he is based on game plan or whatever Les Miles has and he had been talking about during the week or 2 weeks in this case because it was a bye week.
Right.
He goes with some non-RPO plays.
So why does he run the toss on 3rd and 2 though? I get what
Yeah.
you're saying. You want to incorporate some of the coach's comfort, and
yeah,
you want to make him happy because he gave you the job and he's the boss and all that stuff. But why call the toss there then?
I don't know.
Right?
I mean, I wish I knew.
Right.
I wish there was a way that.
That's where I wonder if the headset happens, man. And hey, let's run a toss here. Okay, coach. I mean, it's that simple,
possible.
right? Again, you'd know better, and none of us really know. I know
Right.
that, but
Yeah, so maybe it's a suggestion
There you
that
go.
Brent Dearman is following in the game. I just think people,
certainly not throughout.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
saying
no.
in certain situations
Yeah.
because I can't for the life of me think that Brent Dearman would run a toss on 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 5 or any of those
Well,
situations.
yeah, I mean, especially when his whole thing is about numbers,
Right.
and having the advantage numbers wise,
You
I mean,
automatically don't when you
Yes.
run that play.
And
Yeah,
He's a-
your
he's a-
quarterback's not a blocker. Your
Right.
running back is running, so you're running 8 on 10.
Right.
Like you're already at a disadvantage, and that's just assuming your players are on par with their players that are blocking.
Right.
And that's not the case. We know that.
Good point.
You don't have the numbers advantage. You don't have any advantage whatsoever when you run that. So,
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's and that's what I wrote when he was hired, right? Or when Dearman was promoted. That was the only way this thing works is if Les stays out of the way and lets him coordinate the offense and for better or for worse. Because here's the thing that's important, I think. It's easy to be an offensive coordinator when everything's going well, right? You're dialing up deep shots and you're throwing the ball all over and you're getting first downs and you're putting up 48 points at Texas, and that's a lot of fun, right? But part of being an offensive coordinator, especially at the Power 5 level, is having a week like K-State or having a week or half like Oklahoma State and going, okay, what do I do to get out of this? And if he's not being given that opportunity, and again, we don't know if he is or isn't. I mean, we don't get a chance to talk to Dearman. and we're not getting a lot of answers on that one because Carter Stanley takes the high road and is a good man. But you know, like, we don't know the answer there. But if that is at all what's happening, even in small doses, you're doing a disservice to Dearman and his future and the development of this program and the offense of the future and all that stuff, because he has to learn how to grind his way through a couple of bad weeks, a couple of bad quarters, a couple of bad halves, whatever it is, because there are smart defensive coordinators all over this country.
Right.
And a lot of them reside in the Big 12. And a lot of them, the more film they have, are gonna figure you out a little bit. And so at some point you need to be able to figure out with freedom how to counterpunch what they're doing to you. So I think that's as much a problem here as any of it. I just think he's not being given maybe the space to figure it out on the fly, and that's important because you can't do everything in the offseason. You can't do everything, Sunday through Friday. It's got to happen on Saturdays.
But counterpoint to the original tweet, Bill Belichick has 3 L's in his name, and he's one of the best coaches in football history. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, let's see.
That was the original tweet, which we have to answer the original tweet.
You're right, we do. Mark Mangino, no L's.
Yeah.
Turner Gill, 2 L's. Charlie Weiss, 1 L. David L. Beatty, 1 L. Laverne, I think, is his middle name. So we can't leave that out.
I think his middle name is just like a string of L's.
Yeah. Like
It's
61 of them or something. Unbelievable. All right, I like it. It's a fun question, and it got us all fired up on the Dearman Miles thing again. Let's see what happens this week. It should be very interesting to watch. What time's that game? 11?
It is.
Yeah.
It's an 11 a.m. kick.
KU at Iowa State. My flight is at 12:45. If they get Wi-Fi on that thing, I might check out that second half. I'd like to. The last time I was in Maui to cover this thing, KU played West Virginia at home.
Oh, yeah.
You covered that for me. I was the beat writer back
that's
then.
right.
I went in Tom Keegan's spot 4 short years ago. That seems like 10 decades ago now. And I remember it was an early game, 11 o'clock kickoff, and I remember going, hey, be easy. It's 4 hours difference out there in Maui. I'll easily wake up and turn that thing on and see what I'm missing. I don't want to miss anything. This is the team I cover. After about a quarter, maybe 18 minutes of game time, click, straight to the beach. I did not want to watch any more of that
Do you happen to
game.
remember the final score of that game?
59-7.
You were really close. I do believe it was 49-0.
Okay. There you go. Right. Yeah, you're right. Nothing. So if you missed the underlying theme there, I love Benton. He's a good man because I did not have to cover that game, and I got to go to Maui for that one, and I'm back out there while Benton's in it. Oh, sorry. I won't do it again. 2015, yeah.
It was 38-13 Iowa State.
No, West Virginia. Come on.
Shoot. I thought you said Iowa State.
Hey,
I wasn't paying attention to the
proper
story. Honestly, when you start talking,
Gap
I don't really pay
assignments.
attention.
Oh, my gosh.
Gap sound, Shane.
Okay, then
Did
yeah.
you see him shopping for LeBron jerseys on his laptop while you were talking?
Christmas popcorn tins.
that.
What
I
a
already
clown. What is the West Virginia score, Mr. Internet Boy? Gosh.
That's my bad.
Now we're backed up into a hole, into a corner. We've only gotten one Twitter question.
49-0.
49-0. Trust Benton.
Who said that?
Benton.
Okay.
Benton A. Smith. All right, Benton, next question.
All right,
Something to shut Shane up.
Okay, finally. And this next question is from Zach Wheat. He asks, in short yardage situations, it appears. He had 2 questions, and I went with the wrong one. He was actually asking something that we've talked about, so I was going to go with this other one. I started reading.
Who do you think you are,
that I was
Shane?
going to discard. Shane got me all kinds of confused. So Zach Wheat's other question, which was the one I thought we'd hit on, was about the ineffectiveness of vertical passes. So bubble screens seem to go poorly because the blocking is poor, and Stanley has lacked some accuracy. He's better between the numbers and on deep outs. So what was going on with the vertical passing game against Oklahoma State? To me, this basically came down to the offensive line. The offensive line was poor. It hasn't been great all year, obviously, but I thought like they really were, giving up some pressure to Stanley where he just didn't have a lot of time. I think that KU's receivers were able to maybe win more matchups than we actually saw based on the passing numbers. Just because, those guys are talented. That's a good group. And if you're covering all 3 or all 4 depending on what kind of personnel they have on the field, you're doing an amazing job as a secondary because one of those guys is going to get open. So to me, watching the game, I got the sense that is more on the old line. This one, that the vertical shots weren't really a possibility.
Am I allowed to talk now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I mean, I do think some of it is accuracy too. I mean, Carter Stanley really hasn't been in a groove, and really that's because the offense can't get in a rhythm. I mean, they have had so many 3-and-outs in the last 2 games, and when you don't do that, you're not able to get any rhythm whatsoever for an offense. But I mean, just you go back to the Texas Tech game, I feel like Carter Stanley was pulling these throws like crazy. It was just hitting them in stride. So I think part of it is, your offense only has 3 or 4 plays, and you're off the field. And once you have no rhythm as an offense, I think it makes every throw that more meaningful. And when you're not hitting it, it highlights maybe that inaccuracy.
Yeah, and Ben, your point's good, man. I mean, the receivers are talented; they are going to get open, but at the same time, they abuse Texas and they abuse Texas Tech, and that comes back to that defensive coordinators have more film now, right? And I think especially K-State. They just decided to take that away. You're not going to beat us vertical, right? And so I think that's an element here too that these coordinators and defenses are saying, we're going to make you throw outside the numbers. We're going to make you go horizontal instead of beating us up the field. And you can't do that every time, and there are ways to combat that. But I think it's hard, man, and it's hard. This is where Dearman is showing a little bit of his inexperience and Carter showing a little of his inexperience. And, you can't just automatically snap your fingers and fix that in 1 half or 1 quarter or even 1 week. So I think that's been at least part of it too. And that's why, all right, you had 2 really good games with Dearman, Texas Tech. You had 2 bad ones with K-State and Oklahoma State. So now what are these next 2? Are they somewhere in the middle or do they trend one way or the other there? I think that's going to be really interesting to watch.
This next question is from a guy who always has a question for us on the KU Sports.
No L's in his name.
Nope.
Frank Saunders.
That's right.
I don't even care what his middle name is. it could be Lyle, and I'd ask him to change it because I don't like those L's.
Frank, let us know if you have.
Let us know. Yeah, that'd be big time.
Frank said Iowa State may be the best 6-4 program in America, but they only average 4.7 yards per carry and 1.9 rushing touchdowns per game. Can our front 7 stop them from running the clock, and controlling the tempo? Frank brings up some good points with those statistics. The thing that I'm kind of like most concerned about with the KU defense heading into this game against Iowa State, which is more of a passing attack, and they've been really good passing. I think they're like top 10 in the country passing yardage. But they also have a quarterback who can run the ball in Brock Purdy.
Sure.
So to me, that's almost like anytime that's the case, that you're facing a mobile quarterback who has shown that he can make some plays and actually be effective as a rusher or a passer, KU has not fared well. So I think Brock Purdy's rushing averages kind of bring down Iowa State's team rushing averages. Like they have a couple of backs who actually are pretty effective too. So I'm just not convinced that this KU defense can stop any team's rushing attack, especially one with a quarterback who can move.
Good point. And that's what I was going to say. It's simply just like K-State, just like most games this year, it comes down to me. Do they get a lead or do they not? Mm-hmm. If KU can jump out on top, they can dictate a little bit more. It doesn't mean they're going to dictate it entirely, but if they can get a lead, things can go better. And they take their opponent out of at least some of what they want to do, especially when it comes to running the ball. If they can't and they fall behind 7, 10, 14, nothing, I don't see it going well at all. And I am surprised a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong, but Oklahoma State line was 18. This one is 24 and a half.
Yeah.
Why?
I actually don't know.
Right.
Oh, man. I turned
surprising.
to look to our Vegas
You
insider,
did, yeah.
Shane Jackson.
I mean, that's a touchdown difference. If it was 20, 21, and 18, I don't think I would be nearly as surprised.
Is some of that trend, though? I mean, KU scored 10 points against K-State and 13 against Oklahoma State.
Sure. So there's less faith in KU.
And Iowa State has an offense.
Iowa State,
there you go. That's probably exactly what it is. Yeah, that's probably true. Still surprised me. I was like, wow, give me those points.
Wow. It's just
Spoiler alert.
Telling us your pick.
Unbelievable.
I think Iowa State has run the ball a little bit better as of late. I just looking at their numbers, and the Brees Hall, the running back from Wichita Northwest, has been a more of a factor. I think 4 of his last 5 games, he's had over 100 yards. I think that's made a difference. But you mentioned it. I mean, the quarterback really is the difference for me as well. So yeah, to go back to the original question, I'm at least skeptical of the fact that KU can slow down a running game because they haven't done so all year.
But yeah, Frank made some really good points about like if Iowa State is controlling the clock and tempo, no shot of this being a competitive game.
Right.
You know?
That's the scary part.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And look, Iowa State didn't get off to a great start this year. I think their expectations were really high, as they should be. I mean, they've got a terrific coach and some nice pieces and all that, but
They have 3 losses by 1 or 2 points.
that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, this is a team that is way better. Like Frank said, the best 6-4 team in America. Yeah. Sure, way better than that 6-4 just sort of average mediocre record shows. I mean, not only are they better than that record, but if they win their next 2, then they're going to be 8-4. I don't care if you're Iowa State and you're on the rise. If you go 8-4 at Iowa State consistently, you're doing it right.
Matt Campbell has a chance to win 8 games for the 3rd year in a row.
There you go.
They've been 8-5 each of the past 2 years.
There you go.
And they're on pace to do it again.
Right.
He's done an amazing
he could
job
win
there.
9, right?
Yeah.
You go to a bowl game and win that. So this is a good football team and a more to the point, a good football program. This is a guy who came in with an idea of exactly what he does and what he's about and what he wants to do and implemented it, and it's gone well.
I think they were 3-9 year 1, 8 wins.
Sure.
Year 2.
Shocked the world, and now they're there, right? And I mean there was legitimate reason for them to be talking about wanting to win the Big 12 this year. I mean, I know Oklahoma's ridiculous and all that, but like these guys expect that level of success. They expect to challenge to be in that Big 12 title game, and if things had gone just a hair different in a couple of those games, they'd be sitting there with 1 or 2 losses.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they lost by 1 point at Oklahoma. They lost by 2 points at Baylor. So you've just named the 2 best teams
playing in the
Big
title
12.
game, right?
Yeah. And then they had a 7-point, so a touchdown loss to Oklahoma State, and that was probably the most surprising one.
Wow.
So I mean, they lost to their rivalry game to Iowa in the conference by 1 point.
And they play KU, and then who else? K-State, right? Yeah. Okay. So, 8 wins certainly attainable, especially when you consider that K-State just lost to West Virginia in the weirdest game of the week. I mean, what? At home?
I saw the score and I was like, what happened exactly?
So weird. Yeah. But anyway, let's take 2 more and get out of here.
All right. Our next question comes from the aforementioned Kyle Coffey.
There he is.
Called it. He was calling the shots. Kyle said, I understand an 18-point loss was not ideal for momentum for the program, but couldn't it be said that the program is continuing to build momentum because there are no 50-point losses and the team has seemed to be more competitive? So I think that, this is probably an angle some fans are taking.
It's the right angle.
Like it's
even if it's not
accurate. Not the overreaction angle, which I mean, it's so easy to do in football,
right?
Because there's so few games, and you just like, oh, this is what I just saw. This is what this team.
All
is.
Your hopes are up and then dashed, right?
So this is probably the rational way to think about it, by also giving this season context of the horrible seasons that preceded it, right? So, I mean, maybe that will be easier to do when the season's over.
Sure, in February, looking back, right?
And kind of thinking about, okay, how was this year different than David Beatty years or Turner Gill years or Charlie Weiss years?
Yeah, I saw a lot of people on Twitter last Saturday that were sort of saying, hey, well, this one in the past would have been 55-7. It could have been 55-7. I mean, Gundy pulled back.
Well, their quarterback got hurt and couldn't play in the second half.
There you go. I didn't realize that. I thought he just benched him or rested
No, I think
him.
he hurt his hand.
Okay.
They went with their backup.
So either way, if the starter stays in there, I'm again, it is what it is. The final score is 31-13. I can't say it should have been or could have been. But
I think another reason you might be thinking about this as a fan is like the defense didn't play that. The KU defense didn't play that poorly.
Right. Right.
They were also put in some tough spots with the offense being 3 and out, quick changes with turnovers. So this was actually probably one of the more respectable days for the defense.
Sure.
And I mean, I thought Chuba Hubbard was going to rush for 300 yards. He only had like 125.
Yeah,
I thought they
only.
did. I thought they did a pretty good job.
And you just can't. They just can't link it up. When the offense plays
There you
well,
go.
the defense
Yeah.
can't, and
Yeah.
when the defense plays well, the offense doesn't. I mean, it's just classic KU football plights, man. It's just it takes time. It definitely takes time.
I do get this viewpoint, but I also think it's fair that at some point in the year, your expectations changed around this team.
Right.
I mean, at one point, they were playing like the number 3 offense in the country or something like that through a 2-game stretch there with Dearman calling plays, and then they responded by scoring 23 points on 25 possessions over the next 2 weeks.
Right.
So I think it's fair to say, hey, I didn't expect this to fall off the face of the earth. And it goes back to what we were saying in last week's pod. You know, considering this year a success or not, a lot of us said as long as you don't fade out in these final 3 games, well, you did in one of those games. If the next 2 look like this, I think it's going to be tough to have that momentum heading into next year
Big time.
that is probably going to be huge for this program.
Yeah, they got to sell out. I mean, they got to if they've been saving plays, if they've been saving personnel, whatever it is, they got to sell out to show well in that Baylor game. I don't really care what happens this weekend. You know, you lose it, fine. People are not surprised. You get drubbed, fine. People are not surprised. You play well, that'll obviously help you. But the main thing is, what if you go play well at Iowa State and are competitive and then come lay an egg in your finale against Baylor? Again, last impressions. You know, so they've got to sell out and just do everything they can possibly think of to make sure they're competitive against Baylor, and that's not going to be easy. Last question.
All right. Last one is from AJ Santos. How important is it for Les Miles and the team to perform entering year 3? I expect to see some improvements next year with the new recruits, but how important is year 3 for Les in the future of the program? I thought this was another kind of interesting way to look at it, right? Because, like, I mean, no one in their right mind would have thought that just having Les Miles coach this program immediately after, you know, David Beatty was in charge for 4 years, that this team should go out and, you know, be winning 6 or 7 games. So you give the coach the time to, you know, set a tone with the program, get his recruits in, that type of thing. And I thought we should hit on this just because, like, let's think a little bit about 2020 and what that team's going to look like.
I don't want to.
I know, right? Because a lot of talented players will not be on that team that
Their
are on it right
entire
now.
secondary.
Yeah.
Their quarterback, a huge part of both lines.
Yeah.
It is no. I mean, I respect his opinion, and AJ, you're not wrong to be thinking that next year should be another step forward. But I don't know. I'm not so sure that I'm expecting, at least in the win total department, next year to be any better. It very easily could be worse.
Yeah.
And that would be, you want to talk about year 3. Well, if that happens, if they only win 1 or 2 games next year, that hurts year 3 a lot because your momentum's gone. You got none. Now you've had 2 years of 4 or 5 wins under Les Miles. That forces thousands and thousands of people who have been following it and want to see something different to think, oh, it really isn't. Right. And even if it is, it could be.
Right.
But even if it isn't, or that's just what the mindset will be, I think, from the outside at least. So I think the basic thought going into the Les Miles era was get what you can this year, get to 4 or 5 next year, and go to a bowl in year 3. I think that's what everybody thought. I don't think that was ever in the cards. Now, it could still happen because, again, this is 3 wins is nothing to sneeze at.
And obviously, as we've discussed this year, they could theoretically be at 5 wins by now, pretty easily.
Yeah, very true, very true. So I don't think this was a bad start at all. I just think that it's just I think to spell it out that simply, to say year 1 you get what you get, year 2 you improve, and year 3 you go to a bowl. To say it's that simple is totally underestimating the giant, massive, deep hole that this program has been in. And so is year 3 important? It is. It's massively important, but not important for bowl games and those types of things. It's just massively important for continuity and for development. And I mean, especially if you're in his question included recruits, right? I mean, that's the key, right? So year 3, everybody that's a freshman, Gavin Potter, those types of players this year, be a junior then. Big year.
Or redshirt sophomores like Stephen Parker.
There you go. Right. And then the guys who are coming in next year, who right now the class is ranked 3rd in the Big 12 in recruiting for this class. That's great. Those guys will all have a year under their belt. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, year 3 is massive to me. But I would look at it more from a developmental standpoint, who the players are, how they're developing, how they're progressing. Are these guys that people are high on right now in recruiting actually panning out? Are they contributing? Are they impacting the game and the program? If that's the case, thumbs up, man. But I would look at it from that personnel-only standpoint and don't worry about bowl game or not. I think we're still way, way too far away from that kind of talk. And that's not a knock on anybody. That's just reality, and that's paying proper mind to the hole they were in and the point from which they started.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I think when a new coach is hired, I think a lot of fans, it's easy to just say, okay, year 3 bowl game, because they've seen other coaches do it. But KU's not other programs. They are so far behind the 8 ball that year 3 should be a leap, but a leap may not include a bowl game.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of what you're alluding to. They should be a step in the right direction, yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean 6 wins. Maybe that's 4 or 5, and you were this close to a bowl game, and now year 4 is possibility, or year 5 is possibility. But yeah, it's not like other programs, because Kansas, as we've seen the last decade, is not on the same level just yet.
Good stuff, Ben. Any final thoughts there?
No, I liked that kind of idea. It's one that we haven't really talked about in a while, I don't think, because I mean, especially once you get in the lead up to the season, you're just so much focused on this year,
wins and losses,
maybe
right?
A little bit next year.
Sure.
I just thought like the year 3 thing was an interesting thing to hit on, and I mean, to AJ's credit, he didn't even mention a bowl. It just like
right.
What can this mean? How important is it?
Yeah, good point.
And I think that's just important for KU fans to continue trying to do your best to think about long term and what direction the program is headed. Even though it's tough, I'm sure, as a fan to watch those results against K-State and Oklahoma State. I mean, just the season isn't over yet. And Shane, entering this year, you probably thought KU was going to win 2 games.
Yeah, I've said that multiple times. Yeah,
so
2.
Yeah,
totally
so, I mean,
blowing Shane's mind already.
They're exceeding expectations.
Yeah,
there you go. Right.
It's tough to think big picture, I think, when you're a fan and you're that invested. But try your best to do it, I guess would be my advice.
There you go. Sage advice from the tall, lanky, solid beat writer who's headed to Ames in just a couple of days. That's all we've got for this episode of the KU Sports Hour. Thanks for listening and for all your questions. And keep them coming next week for football for a couple of more weeks, and then we'll dive into some more basketball questions. But we've got you covered. From Ames, Iowa, all the way to Maui, over to Italy, to New York, to Stillwater, wherever we're at. Benton's usually at the crappy places. And
I went to Boston once.
Yeah, you did. There you go. Good point. For Shane Jackson and Benton Smith, I'm Matt Tate. Thanks for checking out this episode, and we'll talk to you guys again real soon on another one.